Towards the end of January 1892, only a few months after the operation of the tunnel began, that the first incident occurred, and a train separated in the tunnel, and they went back in to retrieve the cars. Conductor George Hawthorne and brakeman Joseph Whalen climbed down out of the caboose, and they were overcome with fumes and asphyxiated. So I said they were only into operation a few months when they had the first incident.
If you look at pictures of the images of the steam locomotives coming out after the construction in particular, you'll notice that usually that's followed by a large pocket of smoke coming with it. That's not to say that the engineers didn't understand in building the tunnel that was going to be an issue. They did try and come up with ideas that might alleviate that, and one of those was the concept of actually having a locomotive that was double-ended. So they actually had a camelback, as what is known in railroad parlance, locomotive with a center cab where it could easily be operated from one direction or another. And the idea in part with that is that it might be able to clear out smoke faster as well.
In the early 1890s, they were still using what they call link and pin couplers, which were literally just a large chain link with a pin that locked cars together.
Very, very dangerous device. It was said back in the day that you could always know a railroad brakeman and how long he'd been working by the number of fingers that he was missing, usually one for each decade roughly. And it was because of the fact they had to get in the car, in between each car, and drop a pin into these links.
They had a tendency to break. What would happen was the train was coming down the approach into the tunnel, the cars would bunch up. And then as the train reached the bottom of the tunnel and started to ascend the grade out the other side, the train would run out. And if the engineer got even a little bit heavy-handed on the throttle, he could pull those links apart and the train would separate.
And of course, what that meant was having to back into the tunnel, reconnect up, and in two separate instances, it was a deadly situation. The worst being back in 1904 when a crew went in to try and get that train back out, had to back down almost into the center of the tunnel, and the engine crew and the brakeman crew was killed, including a couple of individuals who had gone in to try and save those same individuals. That really brought it home. And the final one, I think, was also driven by sort of a public outcry situation. There's got to be something better.
The same reporters that had trumpeted the tunnel just a few years earlier were now spreading the words of its dangers and the loss of life that had occurred within it. Gruesome stories filled the paper of suffocation, immortalizing the names of the deceased. Names of heroes who risked their lives to save co-workers were also included. Names such as pump house operator Alexander Forbes, who were one of those who ran into the smoke-filled tunnel attempting to save lives. Forbes, along with 9 others, would later be awarded bronze medals from the Royal Canadian Humane Association with bravery embossed upon them.
He entered the tunnel to try and help the men, and he became overcome by the fumes as well, and they found him at the mouth of the tunnel, and his hands were very badly burned. And Dr. Hayes, I believe, was the doctor that was there. He and Dr. Logie were at the entrance to the tunnel to assist with the people that were injured.
Different products and techniques were introduced by the Grand Trunk to try to keep this tragedy from ever happening again. Large exhaust fans were installed at each end of the tunnel to try to assist with clearing quickly the noxious fumes that developed from the locomotives. While these ideas helped, it was clear that the days of using coal-burning locomotives in the tunnel were numbered,